invite you to take your seats again, please. Dr. Gale is circulating and will require you to sit down, so please join us again. We'll get started now, please. Good afternoon again. I'd like to introduce our panel for you. We thought it was very important in this conference, as we planned it again, to have the full story. We've talked a lot about the engagement of business in the business of global health, in the delivery of global health and nutrition and food security. And so we have here 4 people who are directly involved with significant activities around the world and in specific examples of the way they are engaged in collaborations across sectors. We are very pleased to have Denise Knight, who's Director for Sustainable Agriculture for the Coca-Cola Company, joining us. I'll let you read the full biography, but it's great about Denise. She's had wide experience across almost every one of the issues raised today, including energy and the intersection of energy and global agricultural production, and of course is involved in specific projects that the Coca-Cola Company has around the world and comes out of a vast experience in that space. Please read the details of our biography. We'll just get right into the conversation in just a minute. The second person on our panel, Eduardo Martinez, and Ed is president of the UPS Foundation. The UPS Foundation is engaged not only, as some of you may know from local media and national media, even international media, in food relief projects and the logistics of food relief, but far more and wider, more widely involved in all of the systems of thinking about the supply chain of global health, food and nutrition security. And Ed, like almost everybody from UPS, or a lot of people in their vast organization, started out as a package handler. So he's had on-the-ground experience, as Denise has, really from all the way through an organization. And I think that is very helpful in informing how Ed and actually all of the UPS team think about these issues. But thank you, Ed, for being here. We're grateful. And Eric Raby is a vice president of AGCO Corporation. He's responsible for business development and many other areas. His experience with many years in AGCO comes in a number of parts of the world: Eastern Europe, Middle East, Africa, and beyond. He actually came, at least part of his career, out of the sales part of the career. Now, in business school and around the country, we talk about all kinds of functional areas. Actually, he and I come out of the same area, which is sales. In the end, it's about making transactions and interrelationships with real people, doing real business and transactions across communities and across nations, across borders. And I think that is a very valuable point of view of how they're looking to expand the business, as he will explain, in the whole area of the mechanization and further sophistication of how we produce food in the field, in the groves, and how we process food. The second point that he will really raise is about their engagement now in logistics. We've heard a lot about storage. We lose so much of world food in storage, including in this country, and looking at how to achieve those things. And I think that's a part of his background that will add so much to our conversation. And finally, and another point of personal privilege, Jeff Johnson is president of Birdsong Peanuts. Now, as many of you know, being from Georgia, the peanut business in Georgia is not peanuts. And I was very privileged to work with Jeff over several decades in developing not only the markets for peanuts in this country and around the world, but looking at the food safety, the mycotoxin issues, the whole area of peanut safety, peanut allergy, things that challenge that industry. And over time, Jeff was the founder, one of the founders of the Peanut Institute, to look at that particular issue about allergy. But before that, we worked together in founding the Peanut Research Foundation to coordinate all of the research on all kinds of issues, including mycotoxins and other things that impact peanuts. We're very, very glad that he's here. It's good to circle back after some years and be on a panel with Jeff. And all of you, welcome. This panel is based on the collaborations, but looking at how cross-sector collaborations can work and work better. We've heard about policy and issues. We've certainly looked at the philanthropic side, how thought leadership can be generated by philanthropic organizations or foundations, investment made in making things better, more effective, or at least probing how those things could be. Research and practice, we've heard all of that. And what we hope to achieve is to try to see how these representatives of very different sectors interlace and can work together to form a larger holistic view of how we can be successful in partnerships and collaborations. So we'll ask them both for the examples of their success and how they're probing for further success, but where they also, in the end, see what are the barriers, indeed, with all of their responsibilities in their companies. What does, in fact, as Steve asked, what keeps them awake at night as they try to push the agenda? And finally, that question that Mike Robach raised in the audience about how do they address the issue of corporate success measured by the way the market measures those things with these corporate engagements and socially responsible actions that also align with their corporate strategy. It's a big task, but we've got 4 great people to address it. I'd like to do as other folks have done. We'll give each a chance in a few minutes to talk about their different points of view. Be patient with it, because as you see the arc of this presentation, I think you'll all, being practitioners and academics and business folks, you'll grab the string that runs through all of this, and we hope to pull that all together at the end. But to start with, Denise, thank you very much for being here.
Well, thank you very much, Wayne. I really appreciate this opportunity to be
Let's try one more time.
Can you hear me now?
Let's see if we can.
Can you hear me now? Oh, it doesn't look like it. Hold on.
It's on.
Got it?
Yeah, it's good now. Right.
All right. Anyway, as I was saying, Wayne, thank you, and thanks to Helene for giving us the opportunity to be part of this discussion today and to look at how businesses can contribute to helping to address these challenges of food security and nutritional security. Certainly, we heard this morning the scale and complexity of these challenges that we're facing as we look at these issues, is that it's extremely challenging for any one business, any one company, or even any one industry to do it alone. We are going to have to rely on partnerships across sectors, what we've called the Golden Triangle. We've heard a little bit about that earlier today, of governments, civil society, and businesses all coming together to address these challenges, because we can't do it alone. And really leveraging each other's expertise, the expertise of each organization. What's the government's role? What's civil society's role? And what's the role of the private sector? Today I'm going to touch on a number of ways that we're collaborating and some of the lessons that we've learned. But we've spent some time talking about Africa today, and I'd like to put the example that I'm going to use in a few minutes a little bit in context when we think about the challenges of smallholder farmers and smallholder farmers in parts of Africa. So I'd like to just focus on a typical smallholder farmer in Africa. She lives in a rural sub-Saharan Africa. She farms land that she doesn't own, typically. She gets up early in the morning, before dawn, to go and collect water for herself, for the family's use for the day. And then she spends the afternoon working on the farm, sometimes with a baby strapped to her back. If she's lucky, drought, blight, pests don't destroy her crop, and she ends up with a crop that can help feed her family, and maybe, if she's lucky, a little bit of surplus, which she could sell. But there's no road to the market, so she can't get the crop to market. And even if she could get the crop to market, there's no one to buy it because everybody's poor, like she is. On the other side, let's reflect on Nairobi. A young man based in Nairobi, about 300 miles away, who has no job, or if he does have a job, it pays very little. He's hungry. He goes to the market where the food is often rotting or damaged, and he has no way to access the foods that he needs, or it's priced beyond his ability to access it. So we have a farmer who has surplus that would like to sell it, and a young man who's hungry and would like to buy it. And yet that simple transaction of growing, buying, and selling is too complex, and the barriers to that simple transaction are beyond either one of their ability to solve. And that, I think, is what's at the heart of some of the global challenges, the food security challenges. And that simple daily effort of growing, buying, or selling is what defines the struggle of their lives. Empowering our farmers to sow and harvest plentiful crops, helping to ensure that those crops are produced and reach the markets where there's a need for it, is the global challenge that lies at the heart of the food security issues. It's not just about getting food to hungry people. We heard today, it's really about this convergence of complex issues, whether it's economic growth or environmental or energy factors, or business priorities or strategic business interests. So as I sat back and I thought about it and said, and the company thinks about, as a business, Coca-Cola is very successful at making products available, making products that are acceptable to the markets and the communities, and affordable. If we can do that, surely by working in partnership with others, we can bring that knowledge, those skills, and those assets to bear to help address some of these food security issues. Our business is only as healthy, sustainable as the communities that we serve. And so it's in our strategic interest to ensure the growth and health and sustainability of the communities. We've got numerous partnerships around the globe, cross-sector. One of them, USAID, is a key partnership of ours. We started very strategically focusing on water, but we have now expanded that partnership to include smallholder mango farmers in Haiti. Using our supply chain expertise, we're partnering with the Global Fund, the Gates Foundation, and USAID to improve access to medicines in Tanzania, what we call Project Last Mile. And we've partnered with governments, nutrition experts, organizations like the World Food Program, the Howard G. Buffett Foundation, to provide fortified juice products to school children in Colombia. So there are a number, I'm just touching on a couple of them. Today, though, what I'd like to focus on is some of the successes and challenges of partnering. And I'm going to choose one project to highlight, which has been very successful. And we've recently just launched or published a case study that was researched and written by the CSR initiative of the Harvard Kennedy School. And it's about Project Nurture. And it tells the journey that we've been on, the results, and some of the lessons that we've learned in building inclusive value chains and engaging in very complex multi-stakeholder collaborations. So Project Nurture is a 4-year, $11.5 million project with a goal to double the fruit incomes of 50,000 smallholder farmers in Kenya and Uganda, focused on mango and passion fruit, which are two key fruits in our supply chain. Also, considering that 75% of the agricultural labor force in those two countries is made up of women, the project also targeted 30% of women participation in the program. The core of the initiative is to build capacity for the smallholder farmers to sell into Coca-Cola's supply chain. That means quality, food safety, logistics, processing, and all of it. But interestingly, there's not enough demand, consumer demand for the juice product for us to absorb 100% of the farmer's production. And that's actually a good thing, because farmers can earn more money selling their fruits to the fresh market. The processed market is a great market for slightly bruised, slightly damaged fruits. But the fresh market, whether it's domestic or export, is a higher income market for those farmers. So the project takes this into account and looks at the entire value chain for the farmers. So where are we to date? We've got 51,000 farmers participating in the program, including 14,000 women farmers. They're servicing 3 markets: the fruit processing market, our supply chain, the fresh export market, and the fresh domestic market. Minute Maid Mango, which is was the first product with all the juice sourced 100% locally, is now available in Kenya, in Uganda, and several other countries in the region. We've focused on strengthening the entire value chain through a unique approach of focusing on core business and combining that with philanthropy. Coca-Cola contributed product development, marketing, supplier relationships, and creating demand for the products. The Gates Foundation contributed a grant funding for the project and was also critical in helping us to pull the project to develop, to mobilize it, and put all the pieces in place. And TechnoServe, which is an international not-for-profit organization, acts as the facilitator, engaging with partners and farmers in the region. There's also many other partners, banks, agricultural research institutions, fruit processors, traders, exporters, government ministries. So that's quite a large project initiative. So what are the lessons learned? Well, there were many lessons learned. I'd like to just touch on 2 of them very briefly. The first one is plan for long-term sustainability. Build a business model that's self-sustaining. And the second one is don't underestimate the complexity of managing partnerships. We've heard a lot about partnering today, and I think we're all in agreement that that is the way to go. there we go. Don't underestimate that complexity, and establish clear operating and governance models to help guide those partnerships. When building inclusive value chains designed for long-term sustainability, that means all players in the value chain need to be profitable. Right? You need to make sure that that model exists. Sources to support the enabling environment, knowledge, skills, access to technology, access to financial services, but also infrastructure and regulation. Engage governments right at the beginning of the process. Make them a true partner in the project from the beginning. Understand their objectives and strategies, and how can this project help align and advance their goals for the country. The government really is a critical stakeholder. Within Project Nurture, government was engaged at multiple levels in both countries, from participating in the steering committees all the way down to the agricultural extension agents being invited to participate in the trainings that went to the smallholder farmers. The second one I mentioned is collaboration. It's certainly essential for bringing people together with different perspectives and aligning those perspectives towards a common goal. But it increases the complexity, and not just the complexity among the organizations, but within the organizations. In this case, we're dealing, with Coca-Cola and many others. You're dealing with international organizations in multiple countries with vast staff in different roles, with different backgrounds, different educational experiences, different expectations, and so it gets really complex. Not only do the partner objectives need to align, but the individuals working on the project need to align. And I'll just give you one, on the case of Coca-Cola, that meant internally, for this project, we had to engage our Central East and West Africa business unit, our Global Juice Center, and the juice procurement team. We needed to engage research and innovation for the product development, and we had to engage both our public affairs, communications, local teams, and corporate teams. In addition, we needed to engage our bottling partners in both countries and our fruit suppliers of processed fruit. These are complex business discussions, and it really takes, with everybody coming from different perspectives and different expectations, but it takes a commitment to the success of the project that allows people to work through those differences, to understand, and to really find a way forward as they hit the bumps in the road. I'd say we've only just, we're continually exploring new and unique approaches to advancing and ways to address food security in line with our business objectives. We've established sustainable agriculture guiding principles that set expectations of our agricultural suppliers, and they lay the foundation for our commitment to sustainably source. We've only just begun, I think, collectively, and we heard that this morning, to harness the power of cross-sectoral partnerships. It's not easy, it's complex, but we can certainly do it. We have to commit to success in finding new solutions, and I think we can do that through partnerships.
Good.
Thank you, Wayne.
The word logistics has come up about 150 times today, so
and
there you are.
You know that
Spotlight on you.
UPS loves logistics.
I set you up for that.
But first, I want to thank you, Wayne, and Steve, and Helene for convening this conference for the second year, and really all of you for joining us, because I think that it's convenings like this that bring to reality what we're talking about, which is building partnerships, building the network of networks. And I do want to tell you a little bit of background on the UPS Foundation. It was started by our founder back in 1951. And what we do is we combine our philanthropy with the expertise and sweat equity of our people and the resources and networks of the company. But most importantly, it's the partnerships that we create, those bilateral partnerships that we have with CARE and others that really combine to have a multiplier effect and have huge impacts throughout the world. Our philanthropy and our employee engagement stems to over 4,000 organizations around the world every year. And I have to tip my hat to our people. They contribute over 1.8 million hours of volunteer service in their communities. And they do that through playing to our strengths, to making investments in the environment, to making investments in volunteerism, because we know how important volunteers are to the NGO and to the nonprofit community. Safety, road safety, as well as humanitarian relief are key to us. And of course, with over 400,000 employees around the world, we're the second largest employer in the US, the seventh largest private employer in the world. Diversity is key to us. We are one of the most diverse companies in the world. But with respect to security for food, we've been involved in that area for over 30 years, working with food banks, helping them redesign their transportation networks, their routing scheduling. We've made a lot of investment in that area from a funding perspective. But really with the advent of the Southeast Asia tsunami and then Katrina, all across the world, we knew that we had to do more around humanitarian relief. And food security is an extremely important component of that. And being able to leverage our company assets and our people that are stationed in some of the most dire places around the world, we knew that we could do more. So over the last several years, we've been working with organizations like CARE to leverage our technology. For instance, commodity tracking systems, warehouse designs, where you put your warehouse so that you can have just-in-time delivery, so you can avoid spoilage and stockouts. Those are increasingly important components to food security. We're also engaged with the World Food Program because there are ongoing what we call quiet emergencies that are happening every day. That today, while we don't hear them in this room, there are people crying because they don't have enough food to feed their children. And so those type of events are not really well publicized in the media today, but they happen. So we try to leverage our people and our resources to help the World Food Program. But what we're really proud of is to be able to take a technology and to be able to share it among our partners. So we may develop a technology with the 8 Matrix Foundation, which today is being utilized by CARE in different parts of Africa. It's being used by Catholic Relief Services, by Save the Children. We've worked with the American Red Cross. And that's where we think we can leverage and have a multiplier effect and really apply consistency to the supply chain. Because I will tell you, the biggest challenge when we look at life-saving commodities, time and time again, it's the supply chain. It's that last mile. It's that replication and duplicity sometimes of the same challenges across the same sectors. So what we try to do in our own business, we look for the least common denominator and apply it across the board. And so working with our dear partners, and we have great partnership. Our partnership with CARE goes back 30 years. And we have similar partnerships with the WFP and UNICEF and all the rest of the preeminent organizations that are involved in relief efforts around the world, both in preparing for humanitarian crisis, when sudden urgent disasters occur, and in post-crisis recovery, building capacity, leveraging our technology. But I will tell you that UPS and UPSers learn so much by working with the NGO and nonprofit communities. We basically ask our volunteers, these are professional logisticians, to work with our NGO partners. And they come back changed people. So when you ask a private sector company, well, what's in it for you? Well, I will tell you that for us, it's part of our DNA. Jim Casey started the company over 100 years ago. And I'm sure that you've heard of the Annie E. Casey Foundation and the Marguerite Casey Foundation. And now you've heard of the UPS Foundation. But Jim Casey was our CEO for over 62 years. So he embedded in the culture this sense for community being a key stakeholder in how we advance the company. And more importantly, how do we advance our employees? Because now, operating in over 220 countries, these are our communities too. These are communities where our people live in, whether it's in the Philippines, or whether it's in Australia or parts of Africa. And so these are our current communities. There are our future markets. And so we know that we need to utilize our company resources. We need to tap into the sweat equity of our employees. And they're willing to do that because they know that their company is a social responsible company. But I can't underscore more the inspiration that we get from the nonprofit and NGO community. And so that's where really we pass it forward from what we gain from them, because it's the NGO community that is in the front line every day. And so with that, for those of you in the room, I just want to personally say thank you, because the private sector companies want to do more. They want to collaborate more. They know that no one entity, no one organization can do it by themselves. Working with national systems within countries is extremely important, and that sometimes presents challenges to us in parts of the world that still remain unstable. But we need to always find that common platform to work together, because as I said, no one entity can do it alone. Thank you.
Thanks, Ed. Good. This is as you know, last year the Coca-Cola company, UPS, participated in various parts of the presentation, several different panels. And Ed and the Coca-Cola company last year, Jeff Seabright and Dee Perez were there. We have a new member, and we're really proud to have you here, Eric, to talk about your very different perspective, not on collaborations necessarily, but on thinking about agriculture in the world.
Thank you, Wayne. I'd like to thank the World Affairs Council, CSIS, and CARE for giving us the opportunity to visit with you today. One of the things that I've noticed today is we have sometimes different perspectives, perhaps different agendas, but I think we all do share the common goal of making sure that our fellow human beings around the world are in the position that we're in, and that is that they're able to take advantage of the natural resources that we have, of the ability not only to survive, but more importantly to thrive within their own area. And what can we as business do to help build that up, at the same time recognizing that we have some commercial responsibilities to shareholders or to our employees. One of the things we've done at AGCO, and for those of you who aren't familiar with AGCO, we are an Atlanta-based company. We're more widely known by one of our lead brands, Massey Ferguson. For those of you who've been to Africa and the Far East, you've certainly seen our tractors around. But one of the things that we undertook last year was creating our first sustainability report. And it uncovered a lot of things for us. First of all, it uncovered that we were in fact doing a lot of things around the world in helping to involve our employees into their communities, in helping to push forward initiatives with NGOs, with government organizations, with other commercial organizations. The problem is that we weren't coordinated, even within our own company. And I see that as one of the major opportunities that we have within this room, is taking all the different agendas, all the different viewpoints that we have, and understanding that we do share those common goals. And what can we do working together? I was actually in Africa 2 weeks ago, and I was in the Tambo airport, and I came down the escalator, and I looked up on the wall there, and there's a huge sign, and it said something very profound, and I think is very, very fitting for this meeting. It said, "Alone, you can go fast. Together, you can go far." And I think that's one of the key things that we need to do, is find the proper balance from all the different organizations and all the different constituencies that are out there and that have a vested interest, and sometimes varied interest. It doesn't mean that you only have to have one interest. I want to feed the world, or I want to have commercial success. Those need to become one. They need to become unified, because then we're able to leverage the strengths of each other and really push forward multiple agendas that at the end really make a profound difference in what we're trying to do. To give you an example of some of the things that we're doing now, like I said, I was in Africa 2 weeks ago. We've done quite a few projects. The first one, which really doesn't adhere to some of the conversation we've talked about Sub-Saharan Africa, but it does have impacts to the continent, is we opened our first tractor production on the continent. We've been present in the on the African continent for going on our 7th decade. But it's been basically shipping tractors from different factories around the world and then making sure we support that. But like farmers, when they buy a piece of land, they're in it forever. The same is true for us with markets. When we go into a market, we're there forever. So it was high time for us to make active bricks and mortar investment, and we opened our first tractor assembly factory in Algeria to support the northern part of the country. The second thing we did is to open a future farm, a model farm. As Senator Isakson said this morning, just outside of Lusaka, Zambia, we bought a farm, former commercial farm that had gone out of business. And as such, all the people that lived on that farm had no job, and the place was not going in the right direction. So we had the opportunity to come in, purchase that farm. And what it does is it gives us a platform to do a couple of things. Number one, it gives us a platform to re-engage the local Zambian population, especially around the Lusaka area, that were involved in agriculture or that want to become involved in agriculture. And what can we do with the products that we sell, all the way from very smallholder aimed products all the way up to commercial type products, and getting them educated and getting them acclimated not only to our equipment, but bringing in on a collaborative effort, as we talk about here, some of the other inputs involved in production agriculture, commercial fertilizer, companies like Cargill, all those different inputs that are involved in growing the yields that are required for Africa, not only to feed itself, as Mike said earlier, but to feed the world, because absolutely, positively, with the amount of land that's available there, Africa will, it's not if, it's will become a net exporter at some point in the future. So what we want to do is to make sure that we're giving the knowledge that we have to the people that can put that into effect, put that to work immediately. We're not there to be there, we're there to teach and to move on, to take best practices, to take things that work in certain countries and then replicate that. And we've got between 54 and 57 chances to do that, depending upon the number of countries that you subscribe to. But that's what we want to do, is we really want to make lasting investments in that country. And it's like any other area in that continent. It's like any other area in the world. The success is going to be longer term when you actively involve the people there and they feel like not only are they a part of the process, but they own the process. And that's where the commercial attributes that we bring to the table in educating and showing different practices on how they can not only, again, survive but thrive in their own right is certainly the top of mind for us.
Thank you very much. Well, I appreciate those three perspectives. We have a very different one now, a company that's actually based in, or headquartered in Suffolk, Virginia, but has 80% of their investment in the state of Georgia. Each year they produce approximately 1 billion pounds of peanuts. That's in the state of Georgia. It's a lot they buy from the farmers and then put through the whole process and value creation chain right through to the consumer. And so, but Jeff has led an initiative in his company to move beyond what would be the traditional agribusiness that they have been engaged in, to look at how they could be engaged in these new ready-to-use therapeutic foods. And he will tell us about that experience, and then we'll circle back to talk about some other issues. But Jeff, looking forward to hearing the story.
First, I'd just like to say this is a real dream come true.
Let's see if we can.
Can you hear me? Yes. Is it working? No?
Not quite yet. Should be a green, little green button.
Now let me try.
Oh,
Okay.
Great.
This is a dream come true for me, and I'd really like to thank you and Steve and Helene for asking me. When I got involved in RUTF, which you all heard about today, is basically peanut butter on steroids, practically nobody had heard of it. USAID, I went there a number of times. They had no clue what it was. UNICEF knew a little something about it, but they were still married to corn-soy blend. Nobody in the United States was producing it or even thinking about producing it. Today, you heard Senator Isakson mention it. You've heard a number of people mention it. There's four companies in the United States producing it today, and two of them, Adisia and Manna, are here in this room. So it's really become an integral part of this whole nutrition, food security discussion. Again, we heard about it, or I heard about it in 2004 through a New York Times article about this miracle paste of pretty simple concoction of peanuts, oil, milk, sugar, and micronutrients that was saving millions of lives in Africa. It was developed by a fellow named Andre Briand, a French scientist, I think Nutricet, and a man named Marc Maneri, who operates a number of clinics now, but at the time had one clinic in Africa. And Dr. Maneri was the first one to actually field test this. Before this was developed, the protocol was something called F100 milk powder. And Dr. Maneri was able to save 25% of, and this is for severely malnourished children. These are kids that if they don't get help quick, they're going to die, or at best, they'll be stunted, which you've already talked about. Dr. Maneri was only helping 25, actually less than 25% of these severely malnourished kids. When he started using this new product, this RUTF, it jumped to over 90%. And that's in peer-reviewed journals. You can read it anywhere. It's not under question. It takes 6 weeks of treatment, and the children are basically cured. He's gone back. Researchers have gone back 3 years later, and over 90% of them are fine. So it's really a long-term solution. So we got in touch with Dr. Maneri in 2004 and said, this is just a wonderful thing. How can we help? My company, again, is a private company. We're in the Southeast. We don't have a big staff. This isn't our business. This entire thing is done by 3 of us, perhaps part-time. It's just a labor of love. So we got in touch with Dr. Maneri and said, how can we help? And it turned out there was a lot of ways. And over the years, we've supplied equipment. We've had equipment designed and shipped to him. We've helped. We've worked with Manna in the United States. And we've supplied some expertise. We have experts in agronomics and food safety and so forth. And we're also very close to the University of Georgia, who has a mycotoxin innovation lab that's funded by USAID. And the University of Georgia probably knows more about growing peanuts and more about mycotoxins and food safety than anybody on the planet. So we're fortunate to have them as a resource. But probably the thing that's most interesting to me is what we've done as facilitators. Everyone here seems to be connected, and a lot of talk about networks, but sometimes I'm not sure it gets all the way to the ground. And for example, a few years ago, 4 years ago now, I got a call from a guy named Dan Schmidt from Abbott Labs, and he said, we want to build an RUTF facility in Haiti. We know a lot about, and we're doing it with Partners in Health. who I think Haiti's their biggest operation. And he said, we don't know. We know a lot about drugs, but we don't know anything about food, factories, growing peanuts or anything. Can you help? Can you tell me what you know? And I said, well, no, because I don't know very much, but I know people that do. So we got, our annual convention was in Florida that year, and I got Dr. Maneri to come, and Abbott Labs brought 3 or 4 people, and Partners in Health brought 3 or 4 people, and we brought a number of people from the University of Georgia. We brought experts in construction, food safety, engineers, design, and we spent 3 days on this. And by the end, they had a plan, and it worked. But it got very, very granular. What I've learned, and I'm pretty new at this kind of thing, is you've got to have it all the way from beginning to end. It doesn't really help a lot. You go tell some guy how to grow peanuts and then you go home. What incentive does this guy have? I was in a field in Malawi, and I met the farmer there. He was a chief, Chief Jilumba. And he had a very nice crop of peanuts, and what I learned is that after he harvests the peanuts, they pour water on them. And I said, well, that's a terrible thing to do, because if you put water on them, you get mycotoxins, which are a huge cause of illness and death in Africa. Not only that, you're just inviting salmonella and all sorts of other diseases. So please stop putting water on these peanuts. He said, well, first, it helps my kids shell the peanuts. And that's when I learned, see, I call us peanut shellers. No, his kids are peanut shellers. He said, it helps my kids shell the peanuts. And second, it adds weight, and I get more money for them. I said, Chief, that's a good point. So I learned you really need the whole chain, and the one thing you really need is the guy at the end of the chain that says, I'll buy it. If you don't have a buyer, he's just going to keep pouring water on them. And he'll keep storing them in lousy conditions, and people will still keep getting salmonella. And so when I got Abbott Labs and Partners in Health, I knew we had a buyer. And that's when we got the whole stream, and we worked on it from planting the peanuts all the way through. And that plant is finished and in the process of opening. Another thing I learned is that farming in the third world is different from farming here. We had a prevention. There is a product that would help prevent aflatoxin, which I offered to give these people. I actually did give these people in Haiti. I said, I'm not an agronomist, and I really don't know that much about farming peanuts, but I knew about this product, so I sent it over there so I'd give it to you. You just sprinkle it on the ground, and it takes care of your aflatoxin, which they did. I said, how'd it work? They said it didn't. And I said, well, why? And they said, well, the cow ate it. That's something that hadn't occurred to me. So it's really quite a different thing, and you have to start from one end to the other, and you have to follow it all the way. And to do that, I think you have to have that person at the end of the chain who's willing to buy the product and pay a decent price for it. One other area, and this is quite similar, Hershey Foods called me and they said, we want to build something in Ghana. We want to do RUTF. We want to make our own product. Our CEO is very interested, and we're thinking about doing it on our own. Should we get a partner or do it on our own? And I said, well, you better get a partner if you try to do it on your own, because Hershey, pretty big company, but no experience in Africa, not that much international experience. And I said, if you try to do it by yourself, the odds of success are quite low. So I introduced them to Mark Maneri, and they teamed up with Mark, and we've made several trips to Malawi. And this month, the Hershey board approved $1.5 million for Dr. Maneri to build a RUTF factory in Ghana. But again, you have to start at the very beginning. You have to have the seed. And it's got to be local. I can't tell people, I don't have that much experience in Africa, but I know in the United States, if an agronomist from Georgia goes to Texas to tell them something, they don't pay any attention. They don't want that foreigner from Georgia coming over telling those Texans how to grow peanuts. So I think it's the same way. I think you have to get down to the village level before it works.
That's the Republic of Texas you're talking about.
If they finally succeeded, you have to get down to the village level before it works. And I mean really close. We had, I saw some farmers in Ghana. They came to this experiment station. I said, well, where do you get your seed? And they said, well, we just go to the market and we buy the peanuts right off the, right out of the market. We take them home and we plant them. And I said, but there's seed projects in Ghana. There's actually, I was at a university, there's a field right next to where we're standing, a demo field, that has this seed and we can make it available. Yeah, but the field is 10 miles from where they live and they got to walk. They've never seen that field before. I mean, it's just a different way of thinking. And you have to go through every detail like that. How do you get the peanuts? How do you grow the peanuts? Where do you put the peanuts? Because that's a huge source. You've talked about loss and waste. It's a huge source of waste over there. Then after you do that, how do you get the peanuts from point A to point B? Dr. Maneri, how do you get trucks from Malawi to Somalia, which is not as easy as getting from here to California? There's just a whole range of things you have to have, and I really think it starts, A, with a commitment, B, somebody willing to buy the peanuts, and somebody willing to, enough people to look at the whole chain, experts in every field, and then it takes somebody to follow through from start to finish.
Well, that's an incredible story. It's very interesting that at different levels we can have these engagements. And again, it's part of what we're trying to achieve is how do we combine all of this knowledge. One thing that is really prompted by all of these presentations is the issue of scalability. We have a lot of examples of successful projects, of incredible collaboration. So the first question is, what are the barriers to scale? As you think about taking Project Nurture, for example, it's already big at 50,000 or 51,000 growers, but to think about replicating that somewhere else, or is it more in Africa, in some other area of the country, and how can it become even of greater impact as you think about scalability and the same down the line? Where do we go from, what are the barriers from going from small or medium size to really impacting if we've got a delta of 2 billion people in the next couple of decades? How does that get filled by scalability?
Me first.
Please, Denise, yes.
Wayne, thank you. I think scalability is a challenge that we're all facing, and there's two ways to look at it. Scaling where you are, making it bigger, expanding it throughout the country, and scaling in terms of replicating. Every project is a little bit different. There are common elements to it, but the key to scalability is really learning from the lessons, learning that framework to scale, and then bringing in the right partners to help you take it there. So for example, the lessons learned and the work that we did in Kenya and Uganda around mangoes, we're now applying to our work in Haiti around mangoes with USAID and many other partners. And TechnoServe is our on-the-ground facilitating partner, so they bring those common lessons along. We're also working on mangoes in India. There our partner is with Jain Irrigation. So they're looking at new and unique ways, but again, building on those same fundamental principles of partnerships and making sure that you build the capacity, you invest in building capacity and infrastructure, training, technology at the local level, aligning the objectives, and then having a market for it, which is the role that we play.
And comments on scalability.
Well, I think getting local adoption, right? Because as you take a solution that may work in one country with one country organization, you really have to begin the process of selling and telling and proving all over again almost, because you're dealing with different national systems, different governments, different cultures, and different ways of doing things. And so I think that that certainly is one of the first challenges that comes to my mind is the fact, having been through it, having been in the throes of doing it today, it's a question of really telling the story and proving that a particular solution can work. It's really a retraining of the whole process.
I think from our perspective in mechanization, for instance, it's really taking a look at the different solutions that we have and being able to scale those both up and down to create what I would call a symbiotic relationship. So in some cases you may have a commercial farm that can help provide some of that infrastructure over time, but they really need to become more reliant on the smallholder farms that surround them. It's almost a nuclear model, if you will, that creates a symbiotic relationship, a dependency both ways for sources or routes to market for the smallholders utilizing maybe a larger farm that has some infrastructure, but also taking some of the technologies, some of the practices that we have on the larger scale and being able to scale those down for easy and quick adaptation to the smallholders. I think one of the other areas that we need to look at is, again, really making sure that everyone who is going to be involved in this, let's say down the road many years when the investment might have slowed down a little bit, you're still going to have the government entities there, you're still going to have the smallholder farms, you're still going to have the people who need to eat, and really getting them involved in the process along the way, all the way to creating that market, because ultimately it's those consumers and their ability to buy that product consistently, the ones that demand the quality, the ones that demand food security, are the ones that are really going to drive these investments that we have to become those that are going to be around for a long time to come. For a long time after we're looking at some other initiative. So I think the scalability is very important in determining the appropriate levels of technology as well. We have a lot of technology available to us within the agricultural space, and I think there's a place for those. But we need to make sure that they're adapted in a way that becomes part of a solution and not a stumbling block to progress. And that's very important that we sometimes take a step back and say, what is the final impact of what we're doing here?
I think no doubt it's coming, and they will be exporting food in the future. And what our hope is that if you can get a commercial entity in there like Kraft, and we're lobbying other Hershey, Kraft, M&M Mars, Smucker, this kind of thing. As incomes rise and as the consumers can afford something like inexpensive peanut products, I think there'll be more commercial demand come into these countries, and I think that will drive the need for quality product. They produce a lot of peanuts. They produce, well, maybe not enough, but they produce a lot of peanuts, but the quality is abysmal, and they're dangerous in a lot of respects. We have the expertise, and we have the experience, and to fix that, if we can find the demand at the other end, I think it's coming, but it's taken a lot longer than I would like. And in the interim, what we've done is try to support like Manna here in the United States, who's making and exporting this product. Mark told me he's got the capacity to do 1 million packets a day. That's 350,000 kids a day. that are getting full treatment. It's just amazing. But my goal is to put Mark out of business eventually, because I'd like to see the local, the local producers in Africa and the local factories do it. But one child dying every 5 seconds, you really don't have the luxury to wait around for it to happen. So we look at it from the bottom up. We've taken one project at a time. If there's a way to speed it up and scale it up, we'd be happy to help.
Well, I appreciate it. We've got a few more minutes, and we want, if you have comments or questions, remember we want comments and suggestions too to send to our friends at the UN and the Congress and the administration. But while you form for questions, I did want to ask, and any of you can take this, but certainly whether it's Denise or Ed or Eric, really, but as publicly traded companies, somewhere out in the cosmos, there is a rumbling, and that rumbling is the voice of Milton Friedman. And the question is how is it that you will tell your owners, your shareholders, and the street, or the owners of your family, of what is the answer to the how does this facilitate and move forward our corporate objective? I know that's a complicated question, but we can't end this session without that, and then we'll get to the comments from the audience.
Well, for us, it's as simple as something I said right at the beginning. We are only, our growth, our health, the sustainability of our business is dependent on the communities that we serve, and that's all the communities out there. And so it is within our DNA. We've been engaging with communities since inception in terms of multiple approaches and agenda. Water, as you heard last year, and continues to be a priority focus for us in terms of ensuring access, helping to ensure access to clean, safe drinking water, which is a fundamental component of food and nutritional security as well. And it really is about healthy communities. That's core to our business.
Well, let's put aside the fact that it's the right thing to do for a moment. I think that Jim Casey always said that if you have a healthy and strong community, you're going to have a thriving business. And we believe that now more than ever, the global customer of today, the global employee of today, wants to work with a company that's socially responsible. And that's how I explain it to our business leaders, and it's well received because it's truly a reality.
Absolutely true. Two things. Number one is that what we're attempting to do in some of the emerging markets is no different than what we're doing in what we call mature markets or established markets. And that is to sustain our business, to become involved in our communities. As these two have said, it's all about community. Whether it's an emerging market or a mature market, your direct involvement in the community that you serve is a large, it dictates a large amount of your success for lots of reasons. The second thing is that our shareholders are demanding today to know that we are not only aware of, but more importantly deeply involved in sustainability actions around the world, and especially those that are near and dear to everyone's heart, and that is showing generosity and kindness from the business that we get all over the world, and being able to go out to places that are less fortunate and really trying to bring up the standard of living, improving the amount of rural wealth that's out there, and most importantly, to make sure that people are being fed, that people are not going hungry. So that's something that whether you're in the boardroom or you're on the factory floor or you're out on the farm, that's something that is a common denominator for all of us, and that is that we have to show kindness and generosity from those people who do business with us, and that's all part of the process, regardless of where we are.
We're a privately owned company, fifth generation family. Our only business is peanuts. The Birdsong family has always been very, very giving minded. And when we learn that here's a product that's been good to us for 100 years that has the potential to save people all over the world, How can you not? I mean, you can talk about, and I do to some other industry groups, you can say, well, it puts a halo around peanuts because they're healthy, that's good, it gives you public, but come on. You do it because it's the right thing to do. You can save a kid for $35. You have to.
Thank you for the comments. Professor, your question.
Thank you, thank you. I just wanted to urge our panelists to think a little bit out of the box. You know, there is a perception that if you are in foundation work or if you are a non-profit, you're not a hustler. You're doing, you know, what it is expected of you, maybe a little better or a little more. And I'm really impressed with what the panel's companies are doing. Coca-Cola and sustainable agriculture, UPS, with the largest air transport company in the world, is helping care during the low loads. And my friend Eric, I wish he would push a little bit the Brazilian government to open up some of the arable spaces that they have. They have 55% of the agricultural truck business in Brazil, a Georgia company out of Doraville. And of course, our friend with the #1 peanut exporters in the world. And you had to react very quickly to the rumors about peanut and health, which were so wrong. But one thing I would like to urge all of you, try to introduce into the corporate training a course like corporate social responsibilities. What we do in universities, we take the fields of philosophy like logic, decision-making, ethics, conduct of business, ecology, in terms of making things better. There are so many things that can be done when the manager thinks beyond the maximizing of profit, which would also add the profitability of the company if you are a good corporate citizen. So think in those terms, and we would appreciate that, those of us in academia. Thank you.
Question over here. Yes.
Beth Ann Cottrell from the CARE staff. I'd like to start by thanking Helene, Wayne, and Steve for putting together an excellent summit with really very strong panels. What I have is a comment, and it has to do with a little bit of the discrepancy between the panel on putting children first and the social responsibility panel that has just spoken now. And what I would like to ask of the corporate responsibility corporations is that as you do an excellent job of promoting production within your social responsibility programs, I would like you to remember the previous panel and remember that women, who, as Denise said, are 75% of smallholder farmers, don't only have a production role, they have a reproduction role. And they are not only getting water and working in the fields and going to market, they are pregnant, they are lactating, they are cooking the food, they are feeding the children, they are taking responsibility for health care and education. So I would simply ask you that as you do and they are wonderful programs which I have been a witness to, the social responsibility programs, that you consider beyond reproduction and consider the reproduction role of women as well. Thank you.
Yes.
Hi, my name is Damaso. I promise this is my last question.
Can we write that down? Always glad to have you at these forums.
Thanks. Fortunately, I was raised in circumstances in which we're debating right now in this room on the poverty in a country that meets those characteristics. And I was educated in the United States, both my undergrad and my graduate degree. So people like myself bring totally different perspective on how these policies, how these issues are being pursued or viewed. I hardly heard anything related to government in terms of poverty eradication. It doesn't matter whether you give up your best resources. Out of 10 people who are in poverty or starving, you could only feed one. The rest, they might be lucky enough to get to number 2. Government corruption. there is a lot of contradiction between Western foreign policy and the real practice. For instance, a country like Niger, it's extremely poor, people are starving. However, you see the president, his family, they come to the United States, they get VIP treatment, they get the best cars, the best houses, and then you turn around, you say, oh, there's a lot of poverty in that country. There is no poverty. Every single country in this world has enough resources to feed its own people. The question is, how do you distribute those resources? And a suggestion that I have is that instead of US foreign policy to emphasize on political democracy, which means we go out, run elections, and whoever wins is the president, focus on economic democracy. I wish I could elaborate, but there is no time. So I'm going to, as I promised, I'm going to sit down.
Very good. We will take it that one of the suggestions for the sequel is global health and justice. So we'll put that down. Next.
Swathi Shaker. I'm a recent graduate of the Rollins School of Public Health, and I currently work at CARE. I see how Coca-Cola is improving economic empowerment through local production. My question is more on the health side. I know that this conference is called Global Health and Hunger. So my question is are the local health sectors and the local health economies on the list of partnerships with Coca-Cola, and how does that partnership look?
Certainly, they are. It's a priority for us as well. We have a number of partnerships. I mentioned one. There are different ways or different approaches to it. We have a number of projects. We are looking at fortified juice drinks for school children or communities, working with governments, local health organizations. We also, as I mentioned, are using our distribution network to try and get medical services out to communities in Tanzania. There are a number of different models, and they're challenging. I think one of the things as we're learning and looking at these partnerships is how do you engage with all the partners, with government, to make it sustainable and ensure that it continues on beyond a project. We're really looking at that long-term sustainability, and it's those health organizations and government partners that help ensure that will carry on.
Yes, Infanta Spence Lewis, Morehouse School of Medicine. One of the areas that I would like to address my statement to is the matter of slavery in Africa. Many of the problems that this meeting is very happily addressing with global health and hunger are based on the problems of slavery, both internal slavery and external slavery. And one would think that in your dealing with this situation, that diplomatically, there is a need to put this into your mission statement or your aims, that part of your work is intended or will deal with the distortions that slavery, whether it's mercantile slavery or the slavery of the 16th, 14th century, 12th century in Africa, have done to the continent. Historically, Africa has always been a breadbasket. The Roman Empire got food from Africa. So I think we're seeing a recycle of history to some extent. So I think it's very important. And the historical memory of Africa, Africans have not forgotten. My specialty is infectious disease and malaria research in Africa. And so I've been doing this for 15 years in Africa. And I've had an opportunity to listen to the people, hear to the people in a diplomatic way, the impact and the historical memory that they have of slavery. And this is all across the continent. I think we mustn't forget the Berlin Agreement of 1854, when Africa was fragmented amongst all the European countries. So what you're doing now, to some extent, has a historical memory that is not even based on the indigenous history of Africa. So it is very important to refer oneself in this work to the traditional healers, the traditional history of Africa, and then to come forward. I think this will make your impact more effective. And in closing, I'd like to say, it's not normal for women to farm alone. Historically, Africa was fragmented through slavery. The men were conscripted to World War I and II. So the women, in order to feed their families, had to rely on themselves. So there's going to have to be a modification of behavior in the epidemiology of this situation so that the young males will want to come back and live in the villages and not become urbanized. Thank you for the opportunity to comment.
So I think we have two more and we'll end.
Okay. Thank you very much for a stimulating panel. Clearly, the success of sort of modern sort of industrial corporations is the development and strengthening of the market economy. And a specific question I have is in the area of food, I think our keynote speaker clearly showed that we can produce enough food to feed everyone. It's inequities in distribution. And I'd like to hear what has been done in strengthening infrastructure. I heard references to the last mile, etc. I mean, 20 years ago when I worked in the communities in my own country and walked in, the first thing they said, can you get us a road? And so I'd just like to know where, I know we want to move products, but basic investment in infrastructure and access, and whose responsibility is that? I know it's easy to say it's governments, but we've already heard how good governments work also.
One of the areas that we have invested in recently is grain storage and conditioning. We made an acquisition year before last of a company called GSI that makes quite large grain storage and conditioning structures, which is great for mature markets. But how do we leverage that information? How do we leverage that technology? And we're currently working on smallholder solutions that use the grain storage and conditioning technology on a very small scale and a portable scale that we can distribute out to the smallholders. So what they can do is they can, once they harvest the grain, they take off what they need, they can put the other in this device, and then we can have, if we get the involvement of commercial farms, again, that symbiotic relationship to come by and pick those up and put into the larger storehouse. That gives them a route to market. It helps to eliminate a lot of the post-harvest loss, and it also really maintains the quality. So three of the key things that we talked about in being able to more effectively grow the food that we need out there, that's just one adaptation of a large technology on a smaller scale that we can use. So that, again, it doesn't create a new road, it doesn't create rail systems, but what it does do is it gives the ability when that needs to go to market to really contain the quality and contain the quantity of what was harvested. If you look at a lot of the countries around, even countries like Ukraine, for instance, up to 40% of what is out there to harvest gets lost. And a lot of that gets lost from using old combining technology or poor transportation. So the yield a lot of times can be measured at the field, but in all actuality the yield needs to be measured when it gets really to the table. And anything that we can do in that period of time from when the crop is ready to harvest until it's delivered to the table, so to speak, and minimizing that loss, maximizing that quality, and really giving those people who have put their effort into growing that crop, give them maximum value in the marketplace, then that's what we call proactive adaptation of existing technology on an adaptable scale.
Last comment.
My name is Moruge Dirango. I'm at the Department of Nutrition at Georgia State University. I just wanted to maybe say that the one thing that I've not had discussed at this conference, being a global health conference, is the question of chronic disease in developing countries. We know that diabetes, obesity, blood pressure, cancer are all on the rise in developing countries, and malnutrition cuts both ways. It's undernutrition, it's overnutrition. especially as we talk to the food industry, and especially as Coca-Cola and Cargill and other people expand their reach into that continent, into developing countries. What are some of the thoughts going so that we don't make some of the same mistakes that we've made in places like the US as we roll out these initiatives? Thank you.
Very good. Thank you. Well, we appreciate very much. We want to say a special thanks to the panel. I believe this session ought to and could go on for hours. We have a lot to cover. It's a complex issue, not only in the complexity of the delivery, but the governance. The whole way of thinking about this is calling on all of us as practitioners or academics, people in business school, and people who teach and live these issues to think again and think creatively, think anew about what kind of folks do we need to be involved in this, what kind of new innovations are required. And so in that sense, I think this panel has raised surely more questions than they've answered. And yet, together, that's what this is supposed to be about. I think we're on a lot of ways, even if the collaborations in some cases have been for decades. We know by all of us saying, and these experts saying, and people through the day, we are in many respects at the cutting edge, and we're opening up new doors every day, all the time, because we must. And so in that sense, and in that spirit, I really thank all four of you, and will ask you to give your thanks at the same time asking Helene Gayle to come forward. Thanks a lot.
Thank you. Thank you. Well, thanks so much to this last panel. This has been, that was an incredible panel, and we're in the last stretches, and I'm just going to say a few words of closure. First of all, again, to thank all of you in the audience. You've been a wonderful audience, and this is these kind of symposiums like this, long day, lots to cover, but to have so many of you still here with us and to have had such a wonderful audience throughout, I think has been really spectacular. And I think it really speaks to kind of the high quality of the panels, the keynote sessions, and just the organization that went into this. So I want to again thank all of our presenters, the panelists, and my collaborators with CSIS and the World Affairs Council of Atlanta. And of course, we couldn't have done it without the incredible sponsorship that we got from all of our sponsoring organizations. It's hard to sum up something that has been as rich as this, so I'm not even going to try. But I will just say, when I was listening to this, and there were so many different kernels, and I hope people have been tweeting and, making sure that we send this out to others, and I know everybody got their different parts of this that, you had new insights and whatever. But, when Jeff said that phrase of, if we can save a child's life for $35, why don't we? In some ways, for me, that kind of sums it up. I don't know what the exact dollar amount is, but we have within our hands the solutions. And I think this is all about taking what we have, looking at these partnerships, putting it together, and then saying, why don't we? What are the obstacles, and how do we move those out of our path so we really can do what we know we need to do, which is to make this world a world where everybody has the right and adequate food and nutrition, so that nobody has to go to bed hungry at night. So, I'm just thrilled that we have had this incredible, rich experience from here. We hope that people have had the opportunity not only to listen and learn and to share your expertise, but to meet some new people. And some of this is also about the networking and developing new partnerships. As Wayne said earlier, this room is available for the next hour or so people can network and use the opportunity to do that. So I hope you will. As I mentioned in the beginning, and we've mentioned throughout, we will have an outcomes document, and it's a document from the feedback that we get from all of you. That's going to be incredibly important. We're going to make sure that Senator Isakson, Raj Shah, and who's the third person? Oh, David Nabarro, yes, from the UN. That we're looking at the UN, the government systems, and we will make sure, and the legislature, so that we will make sure that we get this input back to policymakers about this meeting, but your thoughts around how can we make sure that the vehicles, whether it's the Sun Movement, 1,000 Days, Feed the Future, the new budget and food reform, and all the other things that are happening around this issue, that people understand how you think that these things can continue to move forward and perhaps even be improved. So again, thank all of you for being here. Thank you for your incredible participation. Thank my co-sponsors. Thank our sponsors. Thank the incredible presenters and panelists who have been with us throughout the day. This has been a wonderful, wonderful event, and we look forward to seeing you back here next year for, I guess it's Global Health and Justice, or we're not sure yet, but we look forward to continuing this series and look forward to continuing to see all of you partner with us in this important effort. Thank you.